Okay, we have a gentleman here who has a question about steam generator.
Thank you. My name is Jeff Steinmetz. I've got concerns concerning some of the changes regarding the generators and steam tubes. Previously, you stated that you only considered 2 changes to be under the 50/90 rule. This I'm confused by, because it's my understanding that you guys removed the stay cylinder. This should have followed under the 50/90 rule. The changed tube sheet, the thickness of the change tube sheet was changed. This should have fallen under the 50/90 rule. The tube alloy change, this was the only, as I understand it, thing that was clear to the NRC that was changed that SCE notified you guys of. The additional tubes, 372 per generator, this should have fallen under the 50/90 rule. The change tube supports should have fallen under the 50/90 rule. The add flow restrictor should have fallen under the change tube report, and the additional water volume. The feed water distribution ring as well. I would like an answer on each one of these as to why they did not fall under the 50/90 rule. Thank you.
I'll answer a general question. I'll let Joel answer the specifics for each of those items. Actually, all those items did fall under the 50/59 rule, and they were evaluated and dispositioned. As we indicated, only 2 of those required license amendments. Joel, do you want to come up and touch base on some of those other ones?
That's just a statement, it's not an answer.
Okay, just for clarification, when we talk about 5059, we're talking about Title 10 of the Code of Federal Regulations, Section 5059. And that section of the regulation establishes the threshold for regulatory review for planned changes that are applicable to that regulation. And those changes that apply to that regulations are changes to the facility as described in the final safety analysis report. And that's why it's something that is very, very important is how the facility and how the functions of those structure, system, and components are described in the FSAR final safety analysis report, because they form the basis for the operating license. And we look at those changes and we assess how the FSAR describe those subcomponents that you mentioned and how they affected the function of the steam generators. And as Greg said, we still need to review. We have more inspection to do in that area, but at this time, we don't have any indications that those particular components were required for a license amendment. The licensee did consider those in one of the process. This process normally is a 2-step process. You do a screening when you identify all the changes that are affecting your facility, and then you move those that screen in, then you perform the evaluation against the criterion 5059, and that process was done in accordance with the industry process that we endorse through a regulatory guide.
Hang on, Joel. Stay right there for a second. You have a follow-up question on this?
I'm sorry, but I just want to know from the audience, did anybody understand really why every one of those things was changed?
Hang on. We're not taking surveys here, but thank you anyway.
And the NRC was aware of the changes that Southern California Edison was implementing.
All of them? All of them?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. All right. We have a question. Elmo, were you going to say something? Okay. What's your name, ma'am?
Marion Pack, I'm a resident of Laguna Beach, and I would like to know, actually I have 2 questions. The first one is, when the steam generators, the 4 of them arrived from Japan, there were some identifiable problems at that point in time. They were severe enough to even consider returning the generators to Japan. What were those problems? What was the fix that was done on it? And has it led to the 4 lemon generators we now are dealing with at San Onofre? And my second question is, we are continually assured that the release of radiation there was very small. I would like to know, when those generators are in the containment dome that is 4 foot thick of concrete and rebar, Why didn't it contain this small amount of radiation? Why was it released into the atmosphere when it was within the containment dome?
I'm going to go ahead and take the last question. I'll let John Reynoso answer the first question. He actually did what we call a review of the receipt inspections. We're not aware of any issues that associated with what you talked about. I'll let John address that. Should you give the phone to John?
Yeah, John?
My name is John Reynoso. I'm part of the AIT and also the resident inspector there at San Onofre. The way I understand your question was the shipment of the steam generators was made, they never left the Japan, the Unit 3 steam generators. They had issues with the divider plate issues, and the arrival of the steam generators were delayed. Is that your understanding of that?
Well, my understanding was that they were considering returning them, that they were already here, and there was some type of fix-it done, and then they were installed. I just want to know whether these fixes that took place have led to where we are right now.
Well, I'm not aware of any of those fixes that you talked about, but there were conditions that were found with the Unit 3 steam generators where they're stored in Kobe, Japan, that they took additional tests here on site with the Unit 2 steam generators, and they were determined not to have the same conditions.
Now, you could be talking about the issue that was identified in Japan on the Unit 3 steam generator where it had the divider plate well cracked that had to be repaired in Japan. That is a true statement as far as they had to take extensive repair. I discussed that during the AIT portion, the exit. So that was an area that the team specifically looked at because that would be the biggest differences between the two steam generators. So they did have to cut off, if you remember the picture, the bottom of the bowl and the divider plate because they had cracks, had to rework the welds, re-weld the bowl back on, and do pressure testing as well as post-weld heat treatments associated with those activities. But again, we did not find that those contributed at all to the steam generator tube wear.
Now, our process is that we did a steam generator inspection specifically for replacement of steam generators. And we would not allow the Unit 2 steam generators to go in until we knew more about the Unit 3 conditions, and that's what occurred. That may be what you have heard. But at no time did we install steam generators that did not meet our safety standards.
Now, as far as your second part of your question about the leak, about why radiation leaked out, it's because the tube leaked. So once the tube leaked, as Greg Warnick described, the tubes actually separate the primary radioactive water from the secondary clean water. Once those tubes leak, it leaks radioactive water into the secondary, which goes to the steam turbine, which is outside containment. So one of the principal radiation barriers, primary reactor coolant system, which a tube is, actually leaked and allowed the radioactivity to go on the secondary side. So that's why it leaked outside of containment, because the steam goes under the turbine, which is on the secondary side outside of containment.
So what you're saying is if there was a larger accident, a larger leak than what there was, the containment dome provides no protection.
Yes, if there's a tube rupture, you're absolutely correct. The containment dome does not, but like we said before, because of the ability to rapidly detect at low levels, the steam generators are isolated. Now, again, the steam generators, the plant is designed for a tube rupture event. So there is a possibility, and I don't believe, Emmett might be able to tell me, I don't believe we've ever had what we call a steam generator tube design event where both, what's called a double-ended shear, where essentially a chunk of the tube fails, so you have leak from both the cold side and the hot side. I don't think that's ever occurred. I think we've had some failure of one tube, but not a double-ended shear. Is that right, Emmett?
We have had a circumferential severance due to fatigue.
But not double-ended shear.
Earthquake might do it.
All right. All right, thank you, Greg. Good. You guys good? That's it?
Well, just again, to clarify again, the way that is combated and prevented or minimized release radioactivity is, as Greg Warnick identified, the operators identified, and quickly button up the steam generators. They close the main steam isolation valves. and depressurize it so the primary system is less than the secondary system, so it stops the leak. So there will be some radioactivity released, but it's minimized because of the actions that the operators take. Again, as we discussed before, it's a combination of design, monitoring, as well as training of the operators to rapidly identify, detect, and isolate.
Thank you, Greg. Sharon Hoffman, go ahead.
Thank you. I have two technical questions and a logistics question. The first question is, I'm hearing repeatedly that this was unexpected, and I'm wondering what the NRC is doing to look at other replacement parts at other plants, whether they're steam generators, reactor pressure vessels, pumps, valves, whatever they may be, where there was some kind of change. Obviously, when you're allowing replacements, you're allowing changes in an attempt to make things better, but clearly the simulations don't show what is going to happen, and we've seen that very vividly at San Onofre, and I'm wondering how you are applying that. Are you going back and looking at every other application of this sort that you've approved in the last 10, 20, 50 years? So that's my first technical question.
How about if they answer that one first, and we'll get your second one, okay?
All right.
All right.
To make sure I understand the question, is what's the NRC doing with respect to other significant design changes that are implementing in nuclear power plants? I specifically for steam generators, the learnings we're getting from San Onofre. Number one, we talked about we need to take a look at our processes, our inspection procedures, and potentially even our license amendment review process to see if we need to put more into that. But also, there's one other plant, at least that I know of, that has steam generator replacements, and we're taking a look at them as well with that licensee to understand the design. The real question is, how do we know it's going to meet its design objectives when a design is made like that? And so that falls back to the engineering design review, independent verification, all those engineering principles that are at stake that we all rely on for safety, yet somehow our life's experiences have shown us over the years that design sometimes it is not what it's cracked up to be, and that's what we got to watch out for in the NRC and make sure it does not have a significant impact on safety when those types of errors do occur.
All right, Sharon, your second question.
Okay, I would just say that it does have a significant impact on safety, and you might consider that that precaution would be a prudent direction, and you ought to stop making changes and stop letting engineering simulations project what we might have. My second technical question has to do with what about the possibility of cascading failures? So it's been discussed that when the tube burst, it could have sent something flying into another tube, and people have discussed here the possibility of an earthquake happening at the same time. Engineering failures do not happen in isolation, and so I would ask the technical team to what degree they are considering what might have happened and what could happen in the future if that steam generator went flying out, hit another tube, and next thing we know we have a much larger release of radiation.
All right, thank you, Sharon.
Well, as part of the NRC process, we do a risk assessment, and we'll look at the possibility of the multiple tubes failing, and that's being conducted right now. So again, we initially did an assessment for risk, and that's why we launched the augmented inspection team, because the risk did increase by quite a bit. So yes, we're concerned. It is a serious safety issue, like I said. We share some of the same concerns you do, and we've got to understand what happened so it can be prevented. And again, there's no decision that's been made. I mean, clearly, if it had been, they'd be started up. So at this stage, they haven't done enough to demonstrate safety.
A logistics question, final question, right?
Yes.
All right.
Logistics question is, there was an opportunity to submit questions beforehand. We were told there will be an opportunity to follow up with written questions. What are the mechanics for distributing the answers to those questions and to any questions you were unable to answer this evening to the public?
Yeah, again, I'll take that one. Again, the feedback form that Rick talked about, actually, I believe it's addressed to me. So I'll take those questions, and if you'll put on the feedback form how you want to be contacted, preferably by email if that's okay, or if you'd like a different type of response, we can do that also. But I will have the responsibility, as well as some of my team members, to help me to address those issues, or those questions.
All right, Mr. Dan Hurst.
I have two questions, and I would like to preface it by trying to say what I think many people here are feeling. There is tremendous skepticism on the part of many of us about both Edison and the NRC and their very cozy parent relationship. We wouldn't be here today if Edison had told the NRC these were significant design changes and we should go through a license amendment process that the public can be part of, and there should be a thorough review. We wouldn't be here today if NRC had said, we're going to do a license amendment with a full public hearing and with full review. In light of that long history of things like 5 years of fabrication of fire log records and 4 years of diesel generators without batteries attached and so forth, and the NRC doing essentially nothing, my first question to you is, will the NRC, before a decision is made on whether or not to permit restart of either unit, hold a formal, full, adjudicatory, evidentiary hearing in which parties, not just Edison and the NRC, participate, but whereby experts who are critical of both of you testify, where there's cross-examination, discovery, and a full evaluation of whether it's safe to restart. My second question, directly on point about your steam generators and your determination that you want to be transparent. I, for 3 months, along with numerous members of the press, have been trying to get some numbers out of NRC, and I would like you to give us those numbers today. In early February, NRC spokesman Victor Drake said that they had inspected only one of the 4 steam generators, that one being in Unit 2, only 80% of it, and had found somewhere in the vicinity of 900 tubes that had wear more than 10%. For months, we've been asking, how many tubes have you found with wear? And we've been frankly given the runaround. We've been just told by Edison, we only found 2 tubes of trouble in Unit 2. We know that's not true because in early February you had nearly 900. So will you tell us today, how many tubes in Unit 2, how many tubes in Unit 3 have wear of greater than 10%, and also how many tubes in Unit 2 and in Unit 3 have shown any indication of wear? So those are the 2 questions. Will you permit an adjudicatory evidentiary hearing on the safety of restart before making that decision?
All right.
Secondly, how many bad tubes are there in total?
Now the tube question, I'd have to ask Emmett for the exact count. I don't even know if he has the exact count. We do have that information, and again, that's part of our inspection activity. But there were a significant number of tubes that had wear indications. The ones we talked about, Unit 2, were the 2 that had tube-to-tube wear. That is where the large concern. Now, there was other issues on the other generators on Unit 2 that was to do with, and Unit 3, retainer bar wear, which I also discussed. And those were measured and plugged to address that issue. But as far as the specifics, I would have to have the raw data in front of me. I can't remember all that information.
Where will you publish that information?
Well, actually, we will publish some of the information in the inspection report, but I don't know if we'll go to that. We won't go to that level of detail down to 10% wear.
I'll take away a
Hang on, folks, hang on. hang on.
if you would, I apologize, it's Mr. Hurst, right? Yeah, I just don't think, there's almost 20,000 tubes, and so that data, we just don't have it at our fingertips. We have that information, we just don't have it here to relay it to you tonight. I'd like to take away a commitment. What I'm going to offer is to see if we can find a way to get that data and put it on our website and make it publicly available, so you can take a look at the info. Would that be acceptable to you?
No, you must know the number in rough terms. Do you have 1,000 managers in Unit 2? Or do you have 2?
Listen, how about this?
Well,
He committed to putting the information on the public website so it's publicly available. Rather than him approximating, how about if he does it right? He's made a commitment to do that. All right, hang on.
Is this a cover-up?
Thank you for the question. We will get you the specific numbers. And just a second, I will share the percentages with you tonight. But please keep in mind that we've already mentioned that we measure on each tube, on each of the 9,727 tubes in each steam generator, we look for, there could be several wear indications as these tubes move through the tube support plates, right? Rough numbers, rough percentages. On Unit 3, 9% of the tubes in the Unit 3 steam generators, so 19,454 tubes in the Unit 3 steam generators, 9% of them showed wear with greater than 10% through wall indications. 9%. On Unit 2, 12% of the tubes showed wear greater than 10% through wall indication. Let me share with you that compared to other steam generators in the industry, those numbers by themselves are not alarming. What is alarming, and the reason we are here tonight, is because of the unexpected tube-to-tube wear. We will get you the specific information with those numbers. On Unit 3, we saw 326 tubes with tube-to-tube wear, greater than 10% through wall. On Unit 2, we saw 2 tubes with the unexpected tube-to-tube wear, greater than 10% through wall. So we will get the information out to you. I'll get it to you, Mr. Hirsch. But for tonight, 9% of the tubes on Unit 3 with greater than 10% through wall wear. On Unit 2, 12% of the tubes with greater than 10% through wall wear.
Full power plugging limit is 8%. So if those tubes continue to wear while you restarting, you're over your plugging limit. Second point, when you say that this is normal in Unit 2, Victor Drix from NRC is quoted in the paper in early February saying, for Unit 2, the tube to support wear that we're finding so much of so quickly is very unusual. And that's why you need an evidentiary hearing where it's not just as it's saying it, but independent experts before an independent body. And I'd like an answer to the question whether we'll get that hearing.
Thank you. Thank you for your question. We're going to try to get it answered.
Tonight is the augmented inspection team exit meeting. I think if you've been watching the NRC at all over the years, you understand our processes. You might even know better than I do, for all I know. But you know that the inspection process does not provide opportunity for hearing. I'm not defending that. I'm just being straightforward with you to let you know that is the process we're in, and we do intend to follow our processes. I will go on further to say, though, that because we are so early on into understanding what the exact resolution of this problem will be, that I cannot, say we will have a hearing. I can't say we will not have a hearing. It's possible that when we consider the actions that need to be taken by Edison, that it will drive us into the hearing process. So I just don't know the answer to it tonight. But the inspection process does not send us there.
Just one quick comment. Elmo, you're regional administrator for the region in which San Onofre exists. Here's a large number of people you're speaking before. All you have to do is say you'll go back to your superiors and recommend that there be a full evidentiary hearing. Will you do that?
I have been back to my superiors, and with this question, and we are in collaboration on whether or not such a hearing is possible. So, thank you.
All right. That's, okay. Brian Crosby? All right.
First of all, thank you for the opportunity to have these sort of discussions. It's my understanding that there is a nuclear plant in Ohio, Davis-Besse, that has recently discovered a similar pinhole leak in that facility. My question is to the NRC, what effects will this have on the overall nuclear, overall nuclear industry? And secondly, just another quick question is, when this facility comes back up, is there a specific percentage capacity that it will be operating at? And if so, I know you don't want to give specific timelines, but can we expect maybe a testing period and then a shutdown and then a full-blown, bring it up. Yeah, full-blown, bad choice of words, but full-on 100% capacity startup.
Thank you, Brian. David Besse.
Again, I'll do Davis-Besse last. Again, no decision has been made for restart, and those decisions haven't even been finalized. I can't speculate on what the power would be. But there will be, if you look at the confirmatory action letter, it talks about a mid-cycle outage. So when we say mid-cycle, that could be 2 months, that could be 3 months, that could be 4 months. Again, that will have to be part of the action going forward. But again, no decision has been made on startup. As far as Davis-Besse, I'm not aware of that, but I know we do, like we're actually, Emmett might be able to answer that question better than I, but we actually, his office is working on what we call an information notice that talks about some other recent issues with steam generators. So again, just to re-emphasize, where it does occur in steam generators, the idea is not to have unexpected wear, and to make sure when you do have wear, you monitor it so it doesn't cause an issue where you have a leak. And that's why there is an inspection program, because it is a mechanical system and you do get wear. Emmett, do you know specifically about Davis-Besse? Okay. Did you hear that? Emmett is not aware of what's going on at Davis-Besse. So sorry, we can't answer that. But again, usually what we do is, again, there's several, I want to say 3 or 4 sites that have had recent steam generator tube issues that are being, an information notice that describes what occurred is being put out to industry.
Mr. Campbell, you have a question about steam tubes.
So, first of all, I want to say that Southern California Edison's a privately owned company, and if they made a decision that didn't produce the most profits for their shareholders, then they would be removed.
Is this about steam tubes, though?
It's getting there.
All right.
And then, this guy I went to the Diablo seismic hearings in the fall of 1980, and Salzman headed the 3-man Atomic Safety and Licensing Appeals Board panel. Note that safety and licensing are in the same board. They've approved all licenses, to my knowledge, and to my knowledge haven't granted any appeals. So, and then Chairman Salzman got appointed to a federal judgeship shortly before he ruled Diablo was seismically safe, we can rest assured. And then the Dietrich fellow with Edison, I guess, he mentioned that, he mentioned over the longer term life of the plant, as if it's a assumption that we're gonna fire it up and have a longer life of the plant. And then Dietrich introduced the fellow who mentioned prior to restart, as if that's the obvious conclusion of where this process is heading. And then regarding the steam generator tubes, there's supposed to be a difference in the vibration bars between units 2 and 3. Now, Edison installed one of the reactor vessels 180 degrees backwards, discovered 7 months later, and decided to rewire the control room and turn other things around to fit the backward reactor. Is the difference in the tube wear possibly related to one of the reactor vessels being installed 180 degrees backward, or what accounts for the difference?
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I've never heard about the 180-degree backward reactor vessel, so can't comment on that.
At the San Clemente hearing, I asked the question, I mentioned that, and the guy said, well, it is true, one of the reactors had the out-of-design orientation. So it's not a backward reactor, it's an out-of-design orientation. Anyway, talk to the guy who answered that question at San Clemente.
We'll try to look into that. Okay?
Yeah.
Now,
I think,
is there a reason?
well, at the risk of speaking for the team, I don't think that's been identified as one of the causes. The installed configuration of the steam generators was compared and looked at between units 2 and 3. And they didn't identify any configuration differences in the units as a likely or even prospective cause, I think, for the issue.
Thank you for answering the questions as best you can tonight. There was one that was asked about the damage that was done to the steam generators and so forth, and how that might be affected by the level of seismic activity that could be expected in California, just as it was expected in Japan when they were planning for a 7.0 quake and had a 9.0 quake. We had a 4.2 one last week in Whittier. That's not too far from here. And there's a big one expected sometime in the future. Whether it happens precisely in San Onofre or nearby, it's going to affect those steam generators and all of the other fragile equipment here, and are going to affect the lives of 8 million people. Don't you know what capacity of earthquake in this area this plant is built toward?
As Emma indicated earlier, yes, it's based upon ground acceleration, not magnitude. They are somewhat related, but not related. So the steam generator tubes, again, during initial design, seismic is taken into consideration, and that's again why the tubes are tested to ensure that they can maintain their tube integrity through all accident condition situations.
Well, yeah, I'll add to that answer. You know, at the original licensing of the plant, the seismic hazard was established. And it did take into consideration the faults and the potential movements of the faults and the energy in the faults, which would translate into a magnitude earthquake. But but then you got to build the plant to something. And so how would that translate over what distance, what's the soil, what are the characteristics of that to translate that energy to ground acceleration at the site? And so that's what determined then the 0.67 G's acceleration that the site's designed for. But then, in addition to that, though, because of the accident in Japan, the NRC right now is requiring all nuclear power plant licensees to go back and re-establish that seismic hazard characterization based on the best, the latest, and maybe even have to go get some new information about the seismic hazard, so we can make sure we understand the hazard, make sure the plant's built strong enough to protect against it. So it's a major, important question here in Southern California that we get this right. So thank you.
All right, thank you.
Lenore Greenberg. It's become obvious to everybody here that these tubes are horrendously dangerous, unreliable, unpredictable, and represent a tremendous threat to our lives and the lives of our family. And I'm not so sure about whether safety is the first consideration here, especially for Edison. I think that profit is. And when it comes to these tubes, one of the articles in the newspaper, and that was some of the propaganda of Edison, was that they were talking, and a young man started to mention it, they were talking about opening this facility at 50% or some level like that. What I want to know from the NRC people is, would that make those tubes safe?
Thank you.
Well, again, no decision has been made for restart, and we don't know what that level of power is going to be, but it'll have to be evaluated. So, again, the decision could be no restart, or the decision could be restart. So that hasn't been made. I just want to make that clear. So again, we don't know what power level it will be, but clearly if they reduce power, there will be a reduction in the steam flow velocities that we talked about. But again, that's not the only thing that's causing the issue with the vibration. So there's multiple causes and multiple corrective actions that have to be taken. And again, we're waiting to see what they are before we can make a safety decision, because we can't make it yet. And again, if it was right now, if you ask me right now, again, that's why they're shut down, because right now it's not safe.
I realize you wouldn't know the level, the percentage at which they would reopen, but would any reduction in the percentage make those tubes safe, is what I'm asking.
Well, again, without looking at multiple corrective actions, I can't answer that question. But if it was right now, with no other changes, again, my inclination would be no. But again, don't have all the information yet as far as additional corrective actions.
Okay. Richard McPherson. Earlier in talking about, I think it was Emmett that answered the question. There's some people here that are actually trying to understand everything that's said. And the term was used, LOCA rarefication pressure wave. Well, LOCAs and those sorts of things, I understand a little bit, but some people around go, huh? And so when you're given a technical answer to something, please try to explain yourself in something that people can understand. And when you talk about LOCA, a lot of us have lived with those for 40 years and have thought about them or more. But a lot of people here that are serious people haven't, and they'd like to know what things like that mean. Thank you. And thank you to the people that work at Songs for what you do. You do a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. We live and work in this business every day, and sometimes these things just slip out of our mouth, and we don't even really realize we're not using plain language. So we appreciate your patience and your listening and your understanding tonight, as we do try and we'll try to convey it in plain language so you can understand it. Thank you.
And again, a LOCA is a loss of coolant accident.
Yeah. Just briefly, I wonder, before Edison tries to fix these looking like huge problems, before ratepayers get asked to pay for this, can you provide an honest cost comparison with, say, solar panels and solar energy or alternative energy?
It might be a little off the subject, ma'am, but that's something, well, I know it may not be for folks here tonight, but we're on a certain topic. That's a question that might be forwarded.
Yeah, at Concord, you have to look at the benefits and the cost of repairing it versus
Yeah.
doing something different.
I understand, but
Fixing this problem that you're talking about all night.
okay,
Who's going to pay for it?
all right,
How much is it going to cost, and is there a better alternative?
all right, thank you.
Hi, Donna Gilmore. I'm a close neighbor of San Onofre. In the newspaper, to answer your question about alternatives, we don't need any alternatives because we have about a 40% surplus, and every alphabet soup government agency and electric grid operator has said we have plenty of power. We will not have a blackout this summer. So, that should answer that question. So then that raises the other question, why do we need to take this risk? But maybe that's off topic. I don't know. Anyway, in 2009, when they installed, well, you're holding that, I don't need to hold your hand. When they installed the first generator, there was a quote in the newspaper. "The new steam generators are designed to last longer," said Mike Wharton, manager of the steam generator replacement project. "They're designed for 40 years, he said. We expect we'll actually be able to get 60 years out of them. Better materials, better designs. You learn over the course of the year what works well and what doesn't, and you try to build that into the next generation." And then we had a special team of NRC inspectors and specialists in steam generators. And I'm thinking about this quote as I'm listening to all these experts that we brought in and all the different ones that Edison said they're bringing in, and I have a lot of respect for your skills and everything, but there's a limit, and there's still a risk. There's probabilities, and then you were talking about earthquakes. Even earthquakes, it's just a friggin' guess. They don't. It's not really. It's not. So I'm listening to this, and experts. When I see what happened where it leaked radiation after a year and we were just lucky it wasn't a bigger accident, why are we taking these risks for energy we don't need? And I just can't have faith, you know, and that's the bottom line. Why would we boil water with something that could destroy California, destroy our food supply, would always also get to your house in Texas? You know, why are we taking this risk for energy we don't need? And I know you guys are working hard and you're putting in a lot of time on this, and I appreciate all your hard work. But I feel like Alice in Wonderland here, you know, got to drop down some hole, and this is just craziness.
Thank you, Donna. Elmo?
Well, I think this, you know, I really appreciate your sentiment. You know, I can convey to you the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. You know, we're established by law. We have a certain job to do, but we are not advocates or opponents to the use of nuclear energy to generate electricity. What the law charges us to do is, if it's going to be done, if that decision is made and it's implemented, to make sure that it's done safely. And we were set up as an independent agency, and that was for a reason, because back in 1975, the wisdom of Congress said we don't want the safety question to really be compromised to the extent it can. So once that national policy decision was made and the laws are put in place, you know, the agency then is charged to go out and carry out that. And so that's where we're at today. We got to make sure the regulations are met. And I think even beyond that, you know, I've worked with this licensee enough to know that they're working to reduce risk. Your question is, why do you accept the risk using this method of generating electricity? You know, that's a decision that's not mine to make. Mine is to follow the law. And I understand your concern.
On the safety issue, it is a safety issue because you're dealing in simulations. That's totally safe.
Exactly. And I agree with you.
You know, so obviously simulation doesn't seem to be hasn't been effective the last time around.
That was a key factor, we think, from this team, and that issue has to be understood more fully and resolved before the units return to power, clearly.
It can't be resolved.
That resolution's not been given to me. It's not forth. It's a difficult technical issue. I would offer to you, or the answers would have already been evident, but they're not. A lot of analysis, a lot of engineering evaluation is left to be done before the answer is produced. So we'll take a look at it when we get it.
Thank you, Elmo. We have a question, clarification for Tony Eisman here.
Hi, earlier in the evening, there was reference to the decommissioning of Unit 1 and what happens to the old generator. And the comment was that because it has more radioactivity, it's sent to another facility. I was on the California Coastal Commission when Unit 1 was decommissioned. And a lot of time was spent on how to get this generator on a raft, on a barge, to go around the tip of South America to go to the Carolinas. I found out after 5 hours on the web and asking probably 10 people from Edison where it was, they all assumed that it had ended up in the Carolinas. It's buried on site. Earlier reference was that because these are more radioactive, they should be moved.
There was a misunderstanding. That is not what I said. I was not talking about Unit 1. I was talking about Units 2 and 3 replacement or the old steam generators. So Unit 2 and 3 is what I was talking about, and this all happened within the last couple of years. So I'm not talking about Unit 1 of something that happened years ago.
Wasn't that long ago, but the question comes up, and the question I think is communication between Southern California Edison and the NRC. I wonder if you're aware of the fact that it was buried on site.
It's actually not buried. It's in a vessel above ground, and I see it every day as I walk by it.
Okay, why did you spend a lot of, why did Edison go to the trouble of these hearings and lobbying the way they did to move this, if in fact it was all right to leave it on site? What happened that you didn't follow through with the approvals that were granted?
Thank you,
It was
Tony.
years before my time.
Peter? Very good.
Yeah, the question, thank you for bringing it up. We're conflicting issues. What you were speaking about is the Unit 1 reactor vessel, which is from the original Unit 1 reactor. There's only one of those. It is still located on site at San Onofre. We are working with shipping specialists for being able to secure a safe and insured and viable shipping alternative. That work continues. We have not concluded, nor is it our plans to leave that reactor vessel on site, but we have run into, over the years, numerous problems with proposed manners of shipping that original Unit 1 reactor vessel. So that is what the issue that you're bringing up specifically relates to, and we are working quite diligently to continue to move that reactor vessel to its final storage location.
Thank you, Peter. I'm gonna go to the back here. These poor folks back here have been neglected all night. I was only back here once. Why don't you give us your name?
Chris McDowell. My question is on Unit 2. I heard some different language between the NRC and SoCal Ed on sort of the restart. And my question is, the NRC, will you discuss Unit 2 is segmented from Unit 3 as far as the restart? Are you separating that process? And then the second question is, will you allow temporary fixes? I heard a little bit of more language on long-term solutions versus the NRC saying we are looking at the final solution. What's the NRC's perspective on both the long-term and short-term? And what's the NRC's perspective on Unit 2 versus Unit 3?
Thank you.
I'll take that question. Actually, the confirmatory action letter does have different actions for Unit 2 and Unit 3. That was based upon the tube degradation different. The wear was very significant in Unit 3 compared to Unit 2, so there are actions that are different. Now, it is important, if you look at the confirmatory action letter, one of the steps was to actually, you have to determine what happened on Unit 3 and take actions to make sure that same mechanism doesn't show up on Unit 2. So does that answer your question there in the...
So are we going to see a resolution on Unit 2 before we're going to see a resolution on Unit 3, or are they going to happen at the exact same time?
Well, we anticipate, and we can let Southern California Edison answer that one also, but we anticipate to have them come in with Unit 2 first and then Unit 3. But again, that hasn't been finalized. I mean, it could change. I don't know what the final will be, but we do anticipate Unit 2 before Unit 3 because of the severity on Unit 3.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jeremy Kirshner, and I'm the Emergency Services Coordinator for the City of Dana Point, located right next door to San Juan Capistrano. I'd just like to say a couple of things really quick. First, thank you to the Nuclear Regulatory Commission for all of the inspection process that's been going on with the steam generators and the routine inspections that happen at San Onofre every day. Also, I'd like to just briefly mention the communication that we have as the City of Dana Point between Southern California Edison. On numerous occasions, Mr. Dietrich and his staff have met with our city management, our elected officials, our emergency services staff to update us on what's been going on throughout the steam generator process and this whole issue. And we have routine discussions with other San Onofre staff also regarding what's going on with the plant, the status of inspections, and everything that's going on currently. And that's not just something that's happened in the last few months or since January, but those discussions have been ongoing since the city's incorporation in 1989 and even before that with the other jurisdictions. So from our position in the City of Dana Point, we're prepared to respond to any type of emergency, whether it's San Onofre or not, whether the plant's operating or not, and we hope that you would all do the same. Thank you all for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Yoko. I'm a naturalized citizen. I'm born and raised in Japan. And I have a couple of questions. That you mentioned that the steam amount was released 5.2 milligrams. And I'm not familiar with how to calculate the steam to the milligrams. So could you please explain to me about the amount, the strength of the radiation at the source, the released source, that in a maybe in a sievert?
The number that I mentioned was 5.2 times 10 to the minus 5. So that's 0.000052 millirem. I can't in my head do the conversion to sieverts. I have a little conversion on my phone that I use, but I apologize. Here in the U.S. we use terms of rem and millirem and curies.
That was 5.2 times 10 to the minus 5?
That's right. If you want to get with me after, I can put it into my little
Sievert,
conversion.
right? And then the answer becomes Sievert?
Millirem, M-R-E-M.
Yeah, I understand milligrams, but
Yeah, that's the unit that we use in the United States to assess radiation exposure to humans
okay. And
and the damage that
secondly,
it could cause.
okay, I hope I can find out, the level in zero because I'm familiar with